It is a secret. I don't share it with people. When I'm speaking to people, I don't like people standing over me because I'm just thinking that they're looking right at my hair.
It hurts when I put my head on the pillow. And it hurts emotionally to know that you're going to lose your hair, that you won't look the same, that professionally you'll be looked at differently.
Initially when I found out, I was a little shocked because no one I knew had these symptoms. So I didn't know what was going on. At first, when I noticed it, it was more like razor bumps. So I applied some ointment, it kind of went away. And then a year or so after that, the symptoms started getting progressively worse. So then I was kind of in shock on how to go about treating it.
All of these patients have cicatricial alopecia, a group of rare disorders that permanently destroy the hair follicle. Dr. Vera Price is one of the leading physicians promoting research for these diseases.
Cicatricial alopecia represents a group of diseases where the inflammation permanently destroys the hair follicle. Now, the hair follicle is destroyed under the skin, and we call it cicatricial, which means scarring, but we don't see scar on the surface. The scarring is the scarring of the follicles underneath the skin.
Cicatricial alopecias occur worldwide in otherwise healthy men and women. They most often start between the ages of 20 and 60, and usually no other family members are affected. Nicole is a mother of two who has been diagnosed with a form of cicatricial alopecia called lichen planopilaris, or LPP. For 9 years, she had severe itching, pain, and tenderness on the top of her head and was treated as having a fungal infection until she found a doctor who knew what it was.
It took a couple of years to really, dawn on me that this wasn't something that was going to just go away on its own. I saw numerous dermatologists, so I did have periods where it calmed down somewhat, but it really, a lot of the time was angry enough that it was, pussy, crusty, scabby. It was always very painful. I would hit my head and, cry because it was so sensitive. I had seen a homeopath for years for other things, and we had worked on it, kind of off and on. And eventually she finally said, this is something that you need to take care of because it's taxing your system, and I'm going to find out who you need to see. And that's when I met Dr. Vera Price.
Dr. Price continues to see Nicole and other patients affected by cicatricial alopecia. Knowing how little was known about this complex group of diseases, Dr. Price and her patient Sheila Belkin began a grassroots effort and co-founded CARF, the Cicatricial Alopecia Research Foundation. Sheila Belkin is the Chief Executive Officer of CARF.
I first went to an alopecia areata patient conference, and among 800 other patients, I was the only one with cicatricial alopecia. And I realized that hair loss is hair loss, no matter what the disease. And I decided to put my hat in the ring, and I wanted to help other people. CARF is the only voice for patients with cicatricial alopecia where we provide education and support. We have a great website. We could find frequently asked questions that patients have with the most up-to-date information, and announcements of patient conferences and other activities and ways of people becoming involved.
The website is also very educational for physicians who are seeing these diseases because, as I say, they're so rare that someone may have one patient. So it's an excellent source of information for dermatologists, for other physicians who are treating these conditions, for nurses.
Doug Smith works as a construction engineer who is a job foreman and installs traffic and street lights. He also has a form of cicatricial alopecia called lichen planopilaris, or LPP.
I went to my MD and they sort of looked at it like it might be shingles and sort of pursued that area. I started having pustules and a lot more itching and when we got back, he recommended that I go to the Dr. Price. And we went down to see Dr. Price, and by that time my hair, I didn't have a lot of pain with it, but the itching was driving me crazy almost, you know. At one point, I was telling my wife, I hadn't even told her this before, that on the way home from work, the itching had got so bad that I pulled off the side of the road on an off-ramp where there's very little traffic, and put the truck in neutral and grabbed hold of the steering wheel and just screamed. It was, because it seemed if I itched, it got worse. Anyway, by the time I got to Dr. Price, I felt pretty desperate. After going through the Cellcept regimen, I've reached the point where I'm taking no medication for the first time in several years.
As you can see with Doug and Nicole, cicatricial alopecias are difficult to treat. Treatments available today don't always turn off the activity. Each person responds differently to each treatment, and even when the itching and pain are controlled and redness and scaling are cleared, the underlying inflammation is not always turned off, and the hair loss may progress.
We've reached a point now we realize that we need a tremendous amount of research, and we need molecular research. We need to go beyond the light microscope, and this I think will be very rewarding when we're beginning to understand the different types of cicatricial alopecias and put them into categories which we now can't do other than looking at them. We need to know why are they so different and why do they behave so differently, and there's a tremendous need for funding for research.
There still isn't a cure for this physically debilitating and at times psychologically devastating disorder. What's needed is ongoing funding for molecular biologic research and for CARF, which provides education and support to patients and their families. With research comes new specific treatments and ultimately their prevention. For more information about CARF, visit the CARF International website at www.carfintl.org or write Cicatricial Alopecia Research Foundation, P.O. Box 64158, Los Angeles, California, 90064.